What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Lou Reviews, your home and destination for critical thinking in the realm of the unexplained. Please don't forget to share the show. And if you not your first time here, subscribe. If it is your first time here, wait till the end of the show before you make a decision. So important. I mean, it's a big one. I know, and it's very difficult to put yourself through. So I understand. But if it's your second or third or God knows how many time here, please hit that subscribe button. What have you been waiting for? Shame on you if you haven't done that already. Ring the bell. That way you're notified anytime we go live Monday and Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. We have an awesome show today. I cannot wait to dive into this one. So we've heard the stories from Tom DeLonge. We've heard the stories from Lou Elizondo about his military record and the things that he's done. And, you know, I'm a hero. I'm a patriot. We're going to dive into those claims. We're going to dive into what he was doing. Because Jeremy McGowan, I don't know if you guys noticed today, Jeremy McGowan put out a little banger of a Medium article, post, blog, whatever you want to call it. Here's the thing I love about McGowan, and something that just people, if you're gonna mess with Jeremy McGowan, if you're gonna lie to Jeremy McGowan, if you're gonna manipulate Jeremy McGowan, man, you better be ready for whatever happens, especially if you make big claims, because he's gonna look into who you are and what you actually have done and try and expose the things, the duality of some of the things that you say. And so Jeremy McGowan has become pretty proficient with submitting FOIA requests. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, McGowan is... Let's switch this. McGowan should be here shortly. So until he gets here, we're also going to have Manny, Area 503 on Twitter, come stop by probably sometime in hour 2. And we're going to get his take on what was FOIA'd about Lou Elizondo's military career. So let's get into it right now. So I've got the article down here, and I've got the, here we are waiting for McGowan and company to come in and talk to us. And hello, by the way, happy Friday to everyone in the chat. Complicit member, Pinzer Lou. Where's Dana Shadell? There she is. Andres, thank you for the microphone check. I truly do appreciate it. So yes, and the donation. I appreciate the dono. So yeah, thanks guys. Appreciate it. Thank you for everyone being here. Simon Fly. Oh, there's Manny. Shane, what's up, guys? Thanks for hanging. All right, so this is the Medium article that McGowan put out today. I'm going to go ahead and read this so we could set up basically what we're going to be talking about. This is a perfect setup. And so here we go. UFO celebrities, military service records, and Gray Fox / Task Force Orange. Does it make sense? And this is by Jeremy McGowan. So he writes, after the initial leaks and subsequent publication of Luis Elizondo's book, I began to closely scrutinize the claims being made by many about his military service. While I had no doubts about his time in the Army, I was increasingly skeptical of the implied accomplishments being suggested. particularly those surrounding his alleged involvement in combat operations, associations with high-level figures like General Mattis, and other grandiose claims. The records I obtained would reveal a far more routine military career, far removed from any high-level intelligence operations or decision-making authorities. To clarify these points, I filed a Freedom of Information Act, our favorite thing here, FOIA. By the way, check out last episode, where we showed you what to call in and say when calling representatives to say no to the UAPDA, and also possibly attract their attention to improving the FOIA process. So anyway, he filed a FOIA request with the National Personnel Records to obtain his military service records. Based on legal precedents that allow for the release of such records for public figures when there is significant public interest, these precedents, such as the Washington Post versus the Department of Defense in 1991, Perry versus Department of Army, 2005, have established that the release of military records for public figures, particularly when they are involved in public controversies, is permissible and does not constitute an unwarranted invasion of privacy. And that goes for this show as well, because obviously we're talking about his military record. And he's a public figure making grandiose claims, has written a book, has been on national television, and now he's going to make big claims. Okay, cool. We're going to look into backgrounds. We're going to look into the things he said that he did versus the things he actually did. He's going to be scrutinized at every turn and every level, and should be. Rightly so. Upon receiving and reviewing Elizondo's military record, several key details became clear, especially regarding his assignments and awards. These records reveal that, contrary to the suggestion in certain circles, his time in the Army was relatively routine for someone of his rank and position. So here we have assignments overview, a clip from Luis Elizondo's military service record. So you've got the effective dates, the duty, the principal duty, and then the organization and station or oversea country. And so, yeah, when McGowan gets here, he can decipher this stuff, because I don't know what I'm looking at. I mean, obviously we've got dates here, right? That one's easy. But, you know, Fort Hawk, East Code 309, MIBN, Fort Hachua, en route to Korea, he could probably go through this a little better than I could, because I don't understand this jargon. Enlisting and training. So here's the timeline. August of 1995 to February of 1996. Elizondo officially enlisted on August 10th, 1995, and was assigned to the 97B Counterintelligence Agent MOS. After a brief period of casual status, during which he was waiting for his formal assignment, he began training at Fort Huachuca, Arizona, in October 1995. His time at Fort Huachuca, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, home to the U.S. Army Intelligence Center, was focused on developing the basic skills required for a CI agent, including interrogation techniques, surveillance methods, and intelligence reporting. This training, however, lasted just 4 months and was designed to prepare him for low-level support roles in the intelligence field. Okay, so he trained for 4 months in interrogation techniques, surveillance methods, and intelligence reporting. And it was to prepare him for low-level support roles. It was the entry-level training that any 97B would undergo in initial training. Deployment to Korea from February 96 to February 97. In February of 96, Elizondo was transferred to Korea, where he was assigned to the 524th Military Intelligence Battalion. His role during this year-long assignment was typical for a specialist, E4, and included administrative and supportive tasks. While stationed in Korea, he performed duties like data entry, compiling intelligence reports, and maintaining records for higher-ranking personnel. Okay. Despite being deployed overseas, there is no indication from his records that Elizondo was involved in combat operations or any high-level intelligence gathering activities. His role remained primarily administrative and clerical, contributing to the day-to-day operations of the battalion without making any significant decisions. Then he returned to the United States in February of 97 to August 2003. After his service in Korea, Elizondo returned to the U.S. in February of 97, briefly spending less than 30 days at Fort Meade, Maryland. While Fort Meade is known for housing the National Security Agency and other intelligence operations, Elizondo's time there was likely spent completing routine administrative processing. There is no evidence that he engaged in any significant intelligence operations during this time. In March 1997, Elizondo was reassigned to Fort Huachuca with the 308th Military Intelligence Battalion, where he completed his active duty service before transitioning to the Army Reserve. His time at Fort Huachuca would have involved more administrative duties supporting the intelligence community without any operational command authority, as he had only enlisted rank E4. Now, here's his awards and decorations. So he's got the National Defense Service Medal. Jeremy writes, this is a standard award given to all service members who serve during a period of national emergency or conflict. Elizondo received this medal for serving during the eligibility period, which included the Gulf War era. It does not mean he served in the Gulf War or any combat zone. It only means he was active duty at the same time. It is not indicative of any specific accomplishments beyond completing his enlistment. To date, the NDSM has been awarded four specific time periods, which roughly correspond to the Korean War, 1950 to 54, Vietnam War, 61 to 74, the Gulf War, 1990 to 95, and the Global War on Terrorism from 2001 to 22. As Elizondo enlisted on August 10th, 1995, he obtained the NDSM at the end of the insurance period for the Gulf War while still in training. Now, I heard McGowan pop in, so let's go ahead. McGowan, what's up, buddy? Do you need a second? What's that? Nope. No, it's kind of jockey. All right. Let's see what happens. No, don't hear. It sounds like you've got the mic set to a desktop or something. I would say check the settings in the StreamYard and switch your mic. All right. So while we get to that, we'll wait for McGowan. Oh, very scratchy when you speak. Oh, try it again. I'd say pop out and then pop back in, and check your settings before you pop in the room. Cool. All right. So while McGowan does that, we'll continue with the awards that Elizondo's received. So the first is the Army Service Ribbon. The Army Service Ribbon is awarded to soldiers upon completing their initial entry training, which includes both combat training and advanced individual training. Elizondo received this ribbon for successfully completing his basic required training. Overseas Ribbon. Elizondo earned the OSR for his deployment to Korea. The criteria for this ribbon requires at least 9 months of overseas service, which he met during his time with the 524th Military Battalion. However, this ribbon is a standard award for soldiers deployed abroad and does not signify participation in combat operations or special intelligence work. The only overseas service Elizondo had was his time in Korea. He was given this ribbon for serving at least 9 months in Korea. His third one, an Army Good Conduct Medal, which is awarded for good behavior and discipline over a 3-year period. Elizondo's receipt of this award indicates he completed his service without any disciplinary issues, but it does not reflect extraordinary achievements or leadership. Then we've got his fourth one, which is an Army lapel button. It is given to soldiers upon honorable separation from active duty. This standard award further confirms that Elizondo's discharge was honorable, but like NDSM, it does not signify any particular accomplishment. And then his last one is a driver and mechanic badge with driver W bar. This badge indicates Elizondo's demonstrated proficiency in driving military wheeled vehicles. To qualify for the driver W bar, he would have completed military driving training, maintained a clean driving record, and demonstrated proficiency in driving over 12 consecutive months or 8,000 miles. While this award reflects a level of proficiency, it does not suggest involvement in combat or high-level intelligence operations, nor is it directly related to his duties as a CIA agent. So, yeah, I'm interested to get to also ask McGowan what other vehicles might fall in it. Like, does a work vehicle given to you qualify for that? Where you drive back and forth and, you don't have to pay for the car. It's part of the perks. Does that count? Do you get a badge for that? So I'm curious about that. And then here we have the information releasable under the Freedom of Information Act, which has his awards, his time, everything we just went over basically. There has been a lot of discussion regarding Elizondo's being involved in black ops. Now, most of this is ascribed to his time in the military, but that, and he writes in caps and also bolds it. But that did not happen. Any operations in the world of black ops may have come from his time as a DoD civilian, and that's much more difficult to verify. And then he writes in caps again and bold, he could verify it, but he has chosen not to. So if he was in a combat black ops scenario, he could verify it, but he's chosen not to. We have zero documentation, evidence, or proof of any combat operations, any time served in hostile fire zones, or any operator type involvement in said activities. It is interesting to note that according to his personal records, there's McGowan. Jeremy? No, man. Yeah, your mic is all crazy. It's like coming in like pure static. I know it's picking it up because when you speak, it like you could hear it's picking it up, but it's not. I can't hear your silky
Can you
voice.
hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent. All right, hold on a second. Let me put you on a solo layout there. All right, let me test. Go ahead, speak for me.
Testing 1, 2.
Okay, it's a little low. It's a little low. Maybe in the settings you can mess with the where is it in the audio?
Looking for it. It's all the way up.
It's all the way up?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me another sound check there.
Testing 1, 2, 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty good. You're almost in my reds. Maybe if you could move the mic a little closer to you.
I had to switch over to a webcam mic for some reason.
Oh.
My podcast mic isn't working.
Okay, that's what's happening. Okay, so forgive me. I will boost audio in the podcast format if you guys are having a hard time hearing in podcast land. Yeah, they're saying it's really low.
Let me bounce out one more time.
Wait. It looked good on the levels there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're okay now.
Okay. Good deal.
Yeah, you're popping in there. Okay, so Jeremy, I was reading for the audience your Medium article today, and we had just gotten through his 5 badges, his 5 I don't want to awards and decorations as you put them. I was going to say merit badges almost, but but I'll only say that in jest. Thank you, first of all, for being here. Thank you for FOIA-ing this, because this has been a big point of sort of contention when it comes to Elizondo, is his military records. We've heard stories from DeLong. We've heard stories from his mouth, like this sort of, it's been built up as if he's seen combat. We've seen the pictures with him holding the gun and, apparently had been at Guantanamo Bay and all of these other things. What did you learn here? Or where do you want to start with this, I guess?
So to begin with, I want to make it very clear that I'm not saying that Elizondo didn't do any of those things. What I'm saying is that he didn't do any of those things while he was in active duty Army status. He may have done them when he was in an intelligence unit as a DoD civilian. He may have done them as a private contractor. I don't know the circumstances around it, but he did not do them, according to his military records, when he was in the Army. So his Army career only lasted 3 years and 4 months during active duty, and then he went into the reserves.
Right.
But during the time that he was in active duty, he only had 1 trip overseas. That was to Korea, and it was an administrative support role.
So nothing about Guantanamo Bay.
Nope, wasn't there.
Nothing about serving time under General Mattis.
Nope, was not there.
So so nothing in Iraq, nothing in Afghanistan.
No, his only overseas tour was to Korea, and that was with the 524th Military Intelligence Battalion in Korea. He was there from February 96 to February 97. That was his only trip overseas while on active duty.
Okay, so I don't want to be the term what is it where someone sort of falsifies their military record, stolen valor?
He's
okay. I've seen that term thrown around. So I want to, and that's why I was going to say I don't want to inflame the situation. So what is the difference? Because you're a military guy. What's the difference between stolen valor and what sort of I think what we're seeing here with Elizondo?
Stolen valor is very specific. There are certain awards and decorations that you cannot claim that you have if you don't have them. And you can't claim them if you don't have them for financial or tangible asset gain. So, for example, if you said that you happen to have the Congressional Medal of Honor and you don't have it, and you're saying that because you want to get a free Happy Meal at McDonald's, that is stolen valor. Lou is not perpetrating stolen valor. I've never seen him claim that he has these certain awards and decorations that would qualify for stolen valor. And I don't know, and to be quite honest, I truly don't listen to a lot of the things that he says. So I don't know if he has claimed that he did all these things that are being ascribed to him, or if it's just, the telephone game where somebody says the word banana and then a line of 50 people, as you whisper it in everybody's ear, it comes out choo-choo train at the end. I
Yeah.
don't know if people are, making grandiose statements like the guy I quoted in the article, who said that, hey, today I learned that Lou Elizondo was a member of Gray Fox. I couldn't find in the book where Elizondo actually says he was a member of Gray Fox. It was certainly implied. An average reader looking at the way that he wrote things and strung words together could certainly, like that one viewer did, get the impression that Elizondo was saying that he was recruited into Gray Fox. But I don't see where he's actually said that. My basis for writing this article is because of folks like Tom DeLong, who are saying that, Lou Elizondo served in combat in Afghanistan while he was in the Army, and he was rescued by General Mattis wearing flip-flops and a tank top shooting a Mark 19 off of a Bradley.
Yeah.
Absolutely ludicrous. So as far as Elizondo's official military records are concerned, he was only in Korea. Now, again, I will say he could have been in the Middle East as a DoD civilian. He could have been in the Middle East as a contractor. He could have been in the Middle East at, as a multitude of different things after he separated in 1998. But he was not there when he was on active duty.
How common is it for a guy who retires to go into contracting and do business in the Middle East?
Well, first off, he never retired. He did not retire from the military. He only served 3 years and 4 months. He did not serve 20 years. His active duty time was one tour of duty. It wasn't even the full 4-year enlistment. It was 3 years and 4 months. And then he separated and went into the reserves. He was in the reserves until 2003.
Okay, so let me ask you a question about because don't you have to do like a minimum time when you enter the military? Isn't it 4 years or 8 years or something? Like you have to do a certain amount of time?
It is typically 4 years, but each branch has other qualifications. The Army is known for shorter periods of enlistment for certain career fields than others. So a 3 year and 4 month period of enlistment in the Army, it tracks as being legitimate.
So do you think he's the kind of guy, so he went into the reserves. Do you think if they had asked him to stay longer, he would have stayed longer? Do you think they did ask him to stay longer?
How
does that work? Like when you get close to that, to the end of that contract, and let's say you're great at what you do or whatever, or let's say you just want to continue. How does that work? Like, what do you say to your commanding officer? Hey, I want to do more than 4 years. Like, how does that process work?
So as you're starting to approach the end of your first term of enlistment or any term of enlistment, you will be contacted by your unit personnel center or the base personnel center or somebody, and they'll be saying, hey, we need a decision from you. Are you going to re-enlist or are you going to separate? And the choice is yours.
And so there's never like, hey, we'd love to see you come back for another 4 years there, buddy. It's just, you have a choice, make it, let us know when.
Yeah, yes and no. There is an ask occasionally, but it's not an official ask by the Army or by the Air Force. It might be your supervisor. It might be your commanding officer. They might take you out to lunch and say, man, you have been a class act. You're a rock star. I'd hate to see you go. Is there anything that I can do to convince you to stay?
Yeah.
That happens all the time. But you're not going to get an official request from the Department of the Army saying, dear Soldier Snuffy, we would love to see you stay on Army letterhead, and you've done a great job. Please don't go.
Yeah,
that's not going to occur.
How long did you serve, McGowan? How many?
Between reserve and active duty time, a total of 12 years.
12 years. How many were reserve versus active?
It was about 6 and 6.
6 and 6. Okay, so you did an extra 2 years in the active, and then went to reserve. So what's the advantage of serving your term and then going into the reserve? Obviously you keep your benefits, right? But what
Yeah,
what other advantages does a soldier sort of, what, because it sounds like is that sort of the path that most soldiers take after done serving their 4 years or whatever their term is?
I can't speak for the folks in the Army. I
Yeah.
don't know. In the Air Force, no. Most people that join the Air Force either join and stay for an extended period of time, or they get out.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people in the Air Force transfer to the reserves.
But you transferred to the reserves.
I did, and
Yeah.
then I went back into active duty.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. So is the reserves? Because I'm trying to put it in a way where civilians would understand it. It sounds like the reserves is almost like the bench, like you're taking a break, you're taking a breather, kind of reevaluating stuff, but still have a toe into the apparatus. So if you're like, you know what, let's go do another tour, or
Yeah,
whatever it is. And do your
to a
benefits
point.
get better if you decide to re-enlist? Like
No.
what? No. So does the pay get better?
No. Your pay is based on your rank,
Yeah.
and your time in service. It's not based on any other qualifications or anything like that. You have your rank, which dictates your pay.
Yeah.
The benefit to being in the reserves. Now you have two types of reserves. You have the active reserves, where you report in for duty 1 weekend a month, and then you go to 2 weeks out of the year for training. You maintain your physical fitness, you go to the base, you do your weekend drills, you do 2 weeks of service. But at any point in time that you're in the reserves, you can be called up involuntarily, by an act of Congress, to be sent off and do whatever they need you to do.
Right. So a
Um,
declaration of war, say.
yes. The inactive reserves, or the IRR, the inactive ready reserves, is basically the bench. Like you said, it
Yeah.
is a contingent of military personnel that completed their first tour of duty, but now they are, for another 4 years, required to be on the ready, meaning they don't have to go to drills, they don't have to go to training. They can be a kindergarten teacher, a firefighter, or a brain surgeon. It doesn't matter what they're doing. But if shit hits the fan, Congress can say, hey, put your uniform back on. You don't have a choice. You're going back to war.
Yeah. So really anything outside of the mandatory time that they require of you, is that, to me, is the genuine, especially if you're going into an active combat situation. To me, that seems like the genuine sacrifice, because you don't have to do that anymore, right?
Correct.
You can bail out, you could go start a business, you could, like you said, be a dentist or whatever, and you don't have to put yourself in harm's way. Whereas,
Right.
I feel like the first time you sign up for the military, depending on what your situation is, but I know that a lot of people that sign up for the military are looking for a better financial situation. They're looking for a way to go to college. They're looking for a way to get out of the sort of rat race that they're in, and the military offers them a wonderful opportunity to get their college degree, learn a new skill, but also possibly be put in a place where you might get shot at.
Yeah.
So that's part of the deal. And then you also get great, we're going through like a liver cancer situation right now with my future father-in-law's wife, and we're going through a VA, and
Oh, yeah, no.
it's not
The
great.
Department of Veterans Affairs medical system is fragmented,
It's broken.
inefficient, dangerous, and it's just bad.
Dangerous to me is the thing that sticks out, because the miscommunication and it is literally a horror movie with how incompetent some of the things they've done, which I think have actually put more stress on the patient than had to be put on the patient. But whatever, I digress.
There's a great movie with Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah.
I think it was back in the mid '80s. It was called Article 99, and it was all about the shenanigans that happen at the VA hospitals.
Yeah, I got to check that flick out because I have not seen that. Okay, so we've got a couple questions. The first thing I want to read here real quick, from James Craig had a $20 super chat and said, "Fighting off the UFO aliens in Sao Paulo, Brazil right now. Send help." I'm not here. This isn't happening. Again, known as Pip around here. Asks a question. Great question. Thanks for the donut. Says, how likely is it for an administrator to perform the missions he claims he did after going into the reserves?
So it depends on those specific claims. And again, I don't pay much attention to what Lou says directly, but what I will tell you is that an E4, in the Army, there's two types of E4s. There's a specialist, and then there's a corporal. A corporal is considered a junior non-commissioned officer. That was not Elizondo. Elizondo was a specialist. A specialist is not a non-commissioned officer. A specialist can supervise some tasks. They do not have command or authoritative roles over other soldiers. They're not formally recognized as leaders, and they're not given leadership responsibilities. They are basically an admin as a specialist. They're called a specialist because they have a technical expertise for their MOS, their military occupational specialty. They're considered a technical expert. And expert is a misnomer, because to be an expert in your technical field means that you have simply passed the basic level of training and you are competent. In the military, expert means competent. It does not necessarily mean expert.
Right. Okay, so then let's move on to this part where you talk about how there's been a lot of discussion regarding Elizondo's involvement in black ops. And then you said, most of this I ascribed to his time in the military, but that did not happen. So can we get a little bit into this black ops discussion? Because that's one part of the conversation that it feels like you're familiar with. So I'd like to talk about that part.
So there is a lot of people. And again, as much as I would love personally to say Lou Elizondo said he did this, I cannot point to a specific instance where he has said, I did this while in active duty in the Army. So what I said was most people, this is being ascribed to Lou by other people. The article was written to clarify and allow those people to stop, because Lou did not do these things. And it's clear by his record that he did not do these things. So stop saying that he was a special tier 1 operator doing black ops work when he was in the military. He didn't do it.
Right.
Plain and simple, he didn't do it. He was an enlisted, low-rank E4 specialist, trained counterintelligence person, and an E4 is the 4th lowest rank in the military.
How many lower ranks are there below that?
3.
Okay.
There's E1, 2, 3, 4.
So he's at the bottom.
E9.
Yeah. It goes to E9. It goes to E9.
It goes to E9.
Yeah.
So he's less than halfway up the chain.
Right.
To put it in perspective, now I'm speaking for the Air Force. I can't speak for the Army because I wasn't in the Army. In the Air Force, you can go in as an E3 and skip being an E1 and an E2 if you have an associate's degree, or if you were in the Civil Air Patrol, or if you enlisted in a specific career field that has a low body count and they need people in there. They will automatically promote you straight to E3 just because.
Right.
So being an E4,
it's not that impressive. Yeah.
It's nothing. The only thing that an E4 can do is yell at an E3, an E2, and an E1. That's it.
Right. So when he talks about how he likes being a grunt, how he likes being in in the company of, he's more comfortable in the company of grunts, of the lower level guys, because he is one of those guys, right?
Yes, of course. An E4 is not going to be palling around with an E8 or a senior master sergeant, chief master sergeant of the Army. They don't associate.
Right. Wow. That's so, I mean, so yeah, if that's his highest level of qualification and sort of what he reached in the almost 4 years that he was there, suffice to say that I don't even know how all that time in the military translates to his time in OSAP and ATIP, or whichever one he claims to be part of. Like
that would be a question for Stratton.
For Jay, yeah. Well, like, I don't understand where did he learn all of these communication skills that brings people together, like he says in his book, and how Stratton described it to you when you met him in person, how he said that Lou was good at making introductions.
So it's not necessarily communication skills that Stratton was talking about.
Yeah.
Stratton was talking about what Lou's job was in his security oversight. And by that, I mean an administrative role where Lou would have a docket, and the docket would have a list of special access programs. And Lou would say, okay, well, Major General John Smith is in charge of this special access program. My unit has to do a security audit. So I need to call up Major General Smith and get X, Y, and Z documents to make sure they pass the audit. So Lou knew who was in charge of these programs, and Stratton didn't. So Stratton needed Lou to be able to facilitate introductions to people in certain special access programs that Stratton did not have access to. Now that's paraphrasing, but that's what Stratton had told me.
And
it wasn't necessarily skills and communication.
Yeah.
It was just the people that he knew because of the lists that he had access to.
And do you think with his background and the things that he was doing, like, basic analysis, data entry, report compilation, assisting with routine background checks, maintaining logs, like those things put him in a position to help Stratton? I mean, do you think that, like, does this job give him the knowledge that a Stratton would need to access these things? Because, I mean, what is, if Elizondo's an E4, what's Stratton?
I don't know. I don't know what Stratton was, but to answer your question, have you ever watched the TV show Suits?
No, I know what show it is. I know what it's about, but I've never sat and watched it.
Well, for anybody that has watched Suits, there's a character, a redheaded lady on the show that goes by Donna. To answer your question, Stratton needed a Donna. And Donna was the secretary that had the access to all the people, could facilitate the meetings, could find the information, could get the paperwork. That's what Stratton needed. In Elizondo was Donna to Stratton.
And so basically the secretary somehow became louder than the boss.
Sounds that way.
Wow, man. Insane. Okay, so we get into a part here where Elizondo's released military records did not support any of the grandiose claims or implications that were involved in significant combat operations, high-level intelligence work, or decision-making roles. His service was honorable and routine, consistent with the duties of a specialist, E4, in the 97B counterintelligence MOS. His tasks were largely clerical, administrative, and his awards reflect standard achievements for someone of his rank and assignment. Any suggestions that he played a pivotal role in intelligence operations or combat are unsupported by official documentation released by the NPR, or the NRC, and NPRC,
Yeah.
The chances of someone like Luis Elizondo, who served the 97B counterintelligence agent and at the rank of E4 for 3 years and 4 months of active duty, being recruited into Gray Fox, which is known as a Task Force Orange or similar to the covert unit with the United States Army Intelligence. So Task Force Orange or Gray Fox, this is like an elite group.
Yeah. So Task Force Orange, Gray Fox is a real thing.
Right.
It is a special missions unit. It's a blanket term for various special missions units. Now, Gray Fox is not necessarily counterintelligence work. It is more field intelligence. It is what the military calls direct action missions. Fingers on triggers, boots on the ground, C4 on doorknobs. That is the SMU or special mission units. These guys are recruited after being in JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. They're recruited after being in the Navy SEALs. They're recruited after being in Special Forces. And they're recruited after obtaining the rank of a minimum of E5, not E4, and with multiple combat tours while in the military. It would be, I'm not going to say it's impossible. I am going to say it is highly unlikely and very implausible that an administrative E4 counterintelligence would be recruited into a direct action mission unit.
Yeah. And the reason why this is important is because in his book, and just this is an excerpt from Luis Elizondo's book, so copyright disclaimer, fair use. We are here. Let me go and put up the banner, just so, we don't get any static. This is fair use, transformative work. We're sharing excerpts of the book to hit home the points we're trying to make. But here, from his book, he writes, quote, how about remote viewing? Know what that is? Nope, I responded. I was later told by Gene that the Great Skills Program was also called Gray Fox. Gene was an MICACP. What is that? A military intelligence civilian accepted career program. Okay. Gene was a civilian intelligence case officer who worked with the Army. I later found out that Gene also spotted and recruited soldiers into another highly secretive operation called Stargate, or at least what was left of it. He never made it clear if his efforts with Stargate were ever part of the official mission of Gray Fox. Stargate was embedded in the federal government, run for years by the CIA, and later the DIA. Recruits were trained to spy upon enemies, but not in the usual way.
Yeah. Now, in that excerpt, again, I want to point out that in that excerpt, Lou is not saying, hey, I got recruited into Gray Fox.
Right.
Now, Jesse Springer, who runs the Twitter account Rogue UAPTF,
yep.
He stated quite clearly that Lou was recruited into Gray Fox. I have not heard that come from Lou. But again, Gray Fox, people that are in Gray Fox are expected to be higher ranking individuals, many years of distinguished service, extensive special operations experience, almost always at the NCO or higher level, which is an E5 at the minimum or higher. Demonstrated leadership, advanced combat skills, and field experience. And Lou did not even get the marksmanship ribbon when he was in the military. The expert marksmanship ribbon is one of the most common awards and decorations that you can get. You basically have to take your M16 and shoot a target 300 yards and score like a 27 out of 35 or something ridiculous like that. It is so easy. Most people can do it blindfolded.
Yeah. He
doesn't have that, which means that he doesn't have the advanced combat skills. He doesn't have the field experience. And everything that would be expected to be in Gray Fox would be so far past that of a specialist.
Yeah.
And because Elizondo was a specialist, was not an NCO, and did not serve in special operations, the likelihood of him being recruited into Gray Fox is
Slim to none.
Yeah.
Slim to none.
Slim
And that's not a reach saying that. Also, I will say, there have been stories, and I've said this story on this show before when I've talked to Max Moskovich, who is a Muay Thai trained fighter in Thailand. He went to a Muay Thai fighting school in Thailand, and Elizondo has a tattoo referencing one of the 4 Muay Thai schools in Thailand. And so when he saw that, he got super excited, started asking him about the tattoo, and oh my God, do you know this sensei and this guy and this guy? And Elizondo, he said his face went white because he knew immediately that Max said he knew immediately he was full of shit right there on the spot as soon as he said that, because he knew he didn't know anything about Muay Thai fighting, even though he just said he did. So if he has the Muay Thai fighting chops, why would he not be considered, like, how did he not get an advanced combat sort of designation?
Take Chuck Norris, for example.
Right.
Chuck Norris, well, actually bad example because Chuck actually served in the Air Force.
I thought he served.
Yeah, no, Chuck had the same career path that I had in the Air Force. We were both security police officers, and Chuck was stationed in Korea. But sidetrack. You take, say, Tito Ortiz, for example.
Right.
Great fighter, right? Can kick anybody. Can kick my ass like that. Just because you're a good fighter, if you have not gone through the military, the Defense Department, the Army version of combat training, you're not going to get that patch. You're not going to get that training. You're not going to be certified.
But it would make sense if he was a great fighter like that. Wouldn't he be certified in something like that? Like, you would think, like, yeah, he'd be a great shooter. He'd be a great fighter. He would have been in great, especially based off of all of the lore and all of the world building that's been going on the last 7 years around this guy, and how, everybody's, he's an American hero. He's served in combat missions. And now here we have it in black and white through the FOIA, through the Freedom of Information Act, that it doesn't, yes, he served. Yes, he did his time. Thank you for your service. It was honorable. You did a good job while you were there. But as far as we can tell, you were pushing paper and driving.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty telling when you don't have your expert marksmanship badge, but you get a nice little ribbon saying that, my mom lets me drive on Wednesdays.
Can I ask you a question? Can you get that badge, say if they gave you a company car to drive from the base to your house or whatever, would that count as like a part of the 8,000 miles? Or do you have to be driving like a truck, or some sort of Jeep?
Any wheeled vehicle.
Okay.
It could be a moped. But chances are, and this is pure speculation on my part, but it's coming from an informed perspective.
Speculation alert. Speculation alert.
Yes.
There we go.
Speculation, but informed speculation. My guess is that Elizondo got that because as an administrative E4 counterintelligence person, he was chauffeuring around the captains, the majors, and the generals. He was probably their driver.
And that would be a pretty good window into why a Stratton might want, have hired him, because if he's chumming it up, which he is, he's a chummer, he likes to chum it up with folks, and he's sitting there driving around his bosses. So is there a possibility then that, say, if a Mattis came into town, into Korea while he was there, he possibly might have driven Mattis from somewhere to somewhere? No, you don't think so? That would have been held.
No.
So I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt here. I'm trying to give him like a possibility. But again, it's slim to none. Yes, is the possibility there, but it's slim to none.
It would be a non-0% chance that that could have happened. However, when you have somebody like Mattis, you have what's called an advon team or an advanced scout team. And
Yeah.
this advon team is full of attaches. I think, as a matter of fact, I might be wrong here, but I think that Merrick von Rickenschmoff, whatever his name is,
Yeah.
I think this was his position. He would go to Korea or Japan or wherever else that whatever general was going to be visiting the next week. And he would set up the drivers, the rental agencies. He would make sure that the hotel rooms were available. He would make sure that the itineraries were in place. So these generals and people, they have their entourage that
Right.
handle all of that for them. So
Right.
the chances that a CI guy at an E4 rank would be driving General Mattis around is no.
Yeah, it's almost like how Sean Cahill put it to me. It would be as if the dean of Harvard went to a commencement speech for a bunch of kindergartners. It's not going to happen, kiddo. Okay, well that's great.
Now,
that's hilarious.
Now, what I will say is these things that are being said about what Elizondo did not happen when he was active duty Army, according to the personnel records. There is a chance that some of them may have occurred as a DoD civilian, but not while he was active duty Army. Absolutely not.
So as a DoD civilian, is there any moment in time where he would see combat?
It can happen, yes.
Okay.
But again, a DoD civilian that would be seeing combat would be somebody that would be attached to a combat unit based on their role. It could be a contractor, somebody like Blackwater or Z, somebody that came out of the SEALs, came out of the 75th Ranger, came out of Special Forces, and then said, I'm tired of getting shot at for E5, E6 pay. I'm going to go into the civilian world. I'm going to go into Blackwater, and I'm going to do this for $275,000 a year instead.
Yeah.
So that happens all the time. But again, if you go back to what Lou's training was, he was administrative, he was data entry, he was report filing, he was basic level graduate counterintelligence, programmatic type of stuff. He was not direct action. He was mission support. He was mission support. He was not direct action, according to his personnel records. So for him to go from that into a DoD civilian role that saw combat, something's missing, or just isn't there.
Which one are you leaning? Is it missing or not there?
I will say this. I am now, as of about 45 minutes ago, I'm leaning towards something is missing, but not missing in the Army documents. I got a signal text from somebody saying that they were going to provide me with some other information that I did not have that could fill in some gaps. I have not seen it. I have not validated it yet. And when I do get that, I will edit this document and update it to reflect new information if I can verify it.
Could you tell me what gaps it would fill?
I don't even know yet.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't even know yet.
Well, what gap? Well, let me ask you this: what gap are you looking at that you kind of are unsure about? Where is it in his timeline where you're like, well, maybe right here is possible?
Anything after 1998. If it's between 95 and 98, I feel that the records that I received from the National Personnel Records Center are on point and are accurate and are extremely detailed. Down to even his military assignments had handwritten notes on some of the things that I received. So I don't think that there's anything missing from that. After he separated in 98 and went into the reserves, uh, I don't have any records from that.
Interesting.
But even though, if you look at the big document with the red border in the middle on my article, where it says duty status discharged, he was discharged as the rank and grade of a specialist, an E4. And then where it says assignments and geographical locations, see attached.
Yeah.
I have all of that, the attached. I've got all of that.
Okay.
And at the top, it shows his reserve dates of December 1998 to August 2003. If he had made anything higher than E4 between 98 and 2003, it would not have said his rank and grade was a specialist. It would have reflected his discharge rank. So he was literally discharged in 2003 at the same rank that he had when he was in 1995.
So, yeah, he basically didn't go up or down, but he didn't go up. Do you think would you say that's a frustrating, do you think he wanted to move up and it was maybe overlooked?
Well,
and he got frustrated because part of my sorry to cut you off. Part of my belief, part of my theory is that, especially when it comes to the military guys, a lot of them seem incredibly disgruntled with government and how inefficient it is and how the bureaucracy of it. So this to me is another sort of telltale sign that he was in the grinder and never moved up. And I'm wondering do you look at this and see, oh, maybe this is a sign, like, this to me says, yeah, he might have been frustrated with his time in the military. Maybe not as satisfied.
Maybe. I do know, and you can Google this, anybody can look this up. Back when 97 Bravo counterintelligence agent doesn't exist anymore. I think now it's called a 35 Lima. They reassigned the code for it. But back when they were looking at reassigning the code from 97 Bravo to, I think, 35 Lima, there was a report that was put out that said that most of the people that had gone in to the counterintelligence world as a 97 Bravo and a 97 Bravo 10, which was a counterintelligence assistant, they were disgruntled because the recruiters had lied to them. The recruiters had told them that they would be doing all this clandestine super spy versus spy type of work, and they would basically be Jason Bourne. And then when they get to their assignment, they find out real quick that they're doing nothing more than pushing pencils and filing papers. Yeah. And it led to a huge retention problem for the military, for the Army specifically, and they weren't able to get as many folks as they needed for the roles. So that's when they came up with the 97 Bravo 10, the counterintelligence assistant role, to try to take some of those administrative responsibilities away from the counterintelligence agents and give them to the assistants. But this was way after Lou had already done his time. The other thing that may have happened, and I cannot tell the way that the records were delivered, but his reserve time from 98 to 2003, it could have been the inactive ready reserve. He might not have been on active reserve status, meaning he may not have gone to his weekend drills. He may not have been doing his 2-week trainings every year. It may have just been the bench sitter, which could explain why he never progressed past the rank of E4, because he literally didn't do anything.
Yeah, it seems like that could be frustrating, especially if you're not getting like a bump in pay, right? Because his pay's probably staying the same through the whole thing until he gets into contracting work. And then now, does a guy with a record like this going into the contracting world, do you think they can make it significant amount more of money? I mean, with his security clearance, Really? So what kind
Yeah, but
of?
it's going to be a consultative role.
Okay.
It Somebody that has basic level training in Army counterintelligence and a degree in microbiology, which he does.
Right.
He does have a degree. Somebody like that, with his counterintelligence training, with his military training, with a tour in Korea, um, he could parlay that into a contracting position where he is working as maybe a facility security officer, processing background investigations and background checks for other contractor personnel. He could be working as a physical security inspector for, say, the Department of Energy, going out and surveying fence lines, making sure nobody has taken a pair of bolt cutters to a chain link fence to gain access to a secure compound. He absolutely is qualified and could do that in the contracting world and make a tremendous amount more money doing that than staying as an E4 in the Army.
Um. Sorry, I'm just texting my lady here. Um. So then, when he comes out publicly in 2017, and he sends his resignation letter, I would assume that TTSA is essentially a contracting gig for him, right? Just with a little more front-facing publicity.
Well, it's not going to be considered defense contracting
No, it's not going to be
because,
considered
yeah,
that, but I'm saying it's like, in other words, he's doing civilian contracting essentially now, but I would imagine he wouldn't leave a comfy security position like you said in the contracting world to go do TTSA. I would assume that the pay and would either be the same and or better. Plus, it comes with all the cachet of hanging out with Tom DeLonge and moving to California, and that's why we've got Manny 503 coming in probably in the next 15 minutes here. But because he's great, he knows the whole timeline of Elizondo,
yeah.
like where he lived, where he was, and so with the two of you guys, I think we're building a really beautiful timeline of what this guy was doing for 15 years essentially up until these TTSA days.
Yeah, and if you go to Lou's book, and I don't know what page it's on in the official book because I think it's around page 43 or so.
Okay.
Uh, Lou says, and he was talking about his time at Fort Meade, and in what I wrote on Medium, I showed how he was only at Fort Meade for 30 days. In his book, and I'll quote, he says, "My primary job was to lock down sensitive, top secret technology from foreign spies who were targeting major defense contractors like TRW, Raytheon, Boeing, and Lockheed. I also investigated anyone with a security clearance who may have been involved in some sort of criminal behavior and covered walk ins, which sometimes resulted in what was known as the nuisance file." Um, so And then he goes on and says that the 902nd Military Intelligence Group out of Fort Meade, Maryland, was my second assignment, but my duty station was Fort Huachuca. So if you look at my article that I wrote on Medium and you look at his assignments and such, it actually tracks perfectly
Yeah.
because it shows that the 30-day timeline that he was in Fort Meade was while he was waiting his assignment to Fort Huachuca. So, and it shows that he was doing routine administrative processing at Fort Meade, which is exactly what he just said in his book. He makes it sound a lot more grandiose than it actually is,
Yeah.
but he confirms what I put in the article in Medium that he was doing routine administrative processing during that 30-day timeline at Fort Meade.
Ah, man. Okay, so I guess what does this say for you as a veteran, right? And as a guy who's interacted with this guy, who's seen what he's done behind the scenes, also publicly, you've seen the manipulation, you've seen the stuff he did to me, third party through his buddies. What is you uncovering this military record, or finally getting, like, setting this record straight? What does this all say to you about?
So there's two things here. One, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. I am not accusing Lou Elizondo of lying about his military career.
Right.
I believe he embellished. He made it sound more hush hush secret squirrel than it actually was, but I don't detect any blatant lies. What I wrote the article for was to get other people who are ascribing things to Lou that he did not do to stop doing that.
Like a
Because
Matt
they're not,
Ford, like Tom DeLonge. There's so many people in this
Matt Ford, Tom
community.
DeLonge,
Yeah.
Matthew Pines, who said,
Yep.
today I learned Lou Elizondo was a member of the Army Intelligence Support Activity, otherwise known as Gray Fox. Well, no, you didn't learn that because Lou didn't actually say that. Stop spreading bullshit.
Yeah.
This is Lou's military record. This is what he did. He was an E4 as an administrative pencil-pushing support role in a counterintelligence unit. That's what he did in the Army. I'm not talking about what he allegedly did in the DIA or as a DOD civilian or anything else, but stop saying he did this crap in the Army because he didn't do it.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. And on Lou, I would say step up and correct the record and tell people to quit saying things about you that aren't true. It may benefit you. It may increase your book sales. It may prop you up for credentialing, but it's not ethical. So stop it.
Yeah. Well, we just had Manny pop in. I'm going to bring him up just because I know he's going to have some just great insight into this. Manny, what's happening, man? Thanks for hanging out. I'm so happy you guys are here. So let me, wait. How can I do this without...
And Lou, just to let you know, I just got another signal text saying that I'm going to get that phone call in about 50 minutes.
Okay.
So if I have to drop here shortly, it's because I'm getting that call that I was telling you about earlier.
Perfect. Yeah, no, that's a more than reasonable enough reason to do that. Okay, so Manny, dude, thanks for hopping in here. I'm assuming you read Jeremy's article. I didn't want to pick your brain in that space we were in earlier because I wanted to get your raw reaction to this information. But what sticks out to you from this information that dropped today and the timeline that you've built through your doc, Who's Lou?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Lou. Jeremy, thanks for doing that FOIA request, man. That really does fill in a lot of blanks, and it sheds some new light on the subject because, to the best of my knowledge, Lou has never admitted that he was in the reserves for any length of time. That wasn't public information. Perhaps a few people behind the scenes knew that, but the general public didn't. I certainly didn't know it. And the time frame for that's kind of interesting. That looks like his reserve was December 1998 to August 2003. And so I'm kind of wondering if it was an inactive status, if it's possible that at the end of that is when he got pulled into the DIA, when he started, went down to Panama and did all that stuff and did some other things there. It's really filling in a lot of blanks. We know from other interviews that Lou has done that he mentioned about a lot of time in Latin America. And in the book, he talks about in that clip that you read earlier, Lou, about, Gene, what's his name? The guy who brought him into Great Skills, taught him how to remote view. And then, kind
Gene,
of does that.
Gene, it doesn't give, I don't see his last name here, but if I see it, I'll tell you. But yes, you got the first name right, Gene.
Yeah. So, during that time, it's kind of interesting because in the book, and a little bit further past where you were talking about, there's a section where he talks about how Gene taught him how to remote view, wanted to make him a psychic spy, how this guy Gene was in charge of the Stargate program, and when it was killed by whoever, either Congress or the DIA, whoever killed it at that point, that he kept it going as a sort of unofficial program at that point, which is kind of interesting because later on he talks about the program being killed altogether, which is when he went to Panama, and why he was never actually pulled into the remote viewing program. Like he did all the training. Was Eugene Gene Lessman. This is the guy's name. I just found it there. But that really kind of fills in the blank. Like, what was he doing from 2001, 2002, 2003? He was supposedly getting, trained to be a remote viewer and was, in the reserves, but I had always kind of thought before that's when he had gotten pulled into the biocounterterrorism aspect of his role. But it seems like it was a little later than that, probably after he went to Panama. That might have been, 2004, 2005. So this really is filling in some of the blanks. And as far as the remote viewing goes, I've always felt like that was kind of too convenient, like he had this training back apparently in the early mid 90s, but now here we are 25 years later, and he's finally telling everyone that he's got this remote viewing powers, other than a few select people behind closed doors. It always seems suspicious to me. And there was a document that Katie Howland had posted, or a picture she had posted on Twitter, that she said that Lou had given her his original remote viewing training manual with original handwritten notes. And I looked at that document and I was like, if that's a 30-year-old printout from a printer, I'll eat my hat. It's crisp and clean and white, and it looks like it was printed out last week. Like, yeah. I've got like a 15-year-old screenplay that I printed out that I worked on, and it's like yellow, and there's coffee rings on it, and it's dog-eared, and there's notes and shit. Like, it looks beat up, and that's half the lifetime of that document, allegedly. So I think it's real curious. I got a feeling his remote training story, or his remote viewing story, is something that was taught to him by Hal Puthoff, probably after he retired, when he got involved with To the Stars Academy. That would make a lot more sense that Hal would give him this document that's been out on the internet since 1995 and say, hey, study this. It's the same stuff that SRI had, that Ingo Swann wrote this, and the same stuff that we all used back in the day, and coached him on that. And I have a feeling that his whole remote viewing story that's in his book is just a complete fabrication, in my opinion, based upon all the evidence that we've seen. It doesn't make sense that, as Jeremy did just a great job of pointing out, it makes no sense that this person who is recruiting for Gray Fox allegedly would pull a driver, mechanic, a guy who doesn't even know how to shoot a pistol, to proficiency. Like, it just makes no sense that he would get pulled into that type of program, especially when they asked him about remote viewing, and Lou gave the same answer he would give years later when Jay Stratton would ask him about UFOs. Oh, I don't know anything about it. And they're like, oh, you're perfect for the job. You're a complete knucklehead. You know nothing about UFOs. You know nothing about remote viewing. It's perfect that we're going to train you for this. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. And yeah, I think in the book, he doesn't actually say he was pulled into Gray Fox. He just, he goes into this page and a half long tirade about what Gray Fox was, and special forces, and Stargate, and all this stuff. And then, there's one little sentence where he's like, I never asked Gene if he was actually recruiting for Gray Fox, and that's probably his disclaimer.
Yeah, it's wordplay, and it lets the reader go down a path that they make up in their own head that says, oh my God, Lou was part of this. And Lou was part of Gray Fox, and he was a special operator, and he was doing all these special operations things. And Lou doesn't quash that. He's encouraging it through the way that he has told this story. And I find that very disheartening and disingenuous.
I agree. And I think that that's kind of textbook for him, is to drop a little breadcrumb out in the public, and then behind closed doors, go to someone like to say Jesse Springer and say, no, this is absolutely true. I was in Gray Fox. I just can't talk about it publicly, so that they go out and battle and get the story out there on his behalf. And he's got a history of doing that with different people. I'm not saying that's exactly what happened with Springer, because I don't know, but it seems like that's probably the case. I don't think Jesse would have come onto Twitter and said unequivocally, with no minced words, that is the truth, that he was recruited into Gray Fox, if that wasn't the case. So
I can tell you right now, Jesse Springer, Rogue UAPTF, who, by the way, you can he was thanked on the thank you letter for the Skyfort thank you letter. He was referenced there, and he was my point person for the Big Phone Home. He was the guy that Elizondo said, anything you have to filter to us, you send it through Jesse, and Jesse will he was basically the guy between me and everyone else. And Jesse would also, we would have really long conversations on sort of the plan and how to make this whole big phone home thing work. And one of the things he recommended that I do, and this was one of the first red flags I had, he told me you should talk to Stephen Bassett. Stephen Bassett was the first guy to kind of do something similar to this, and he can give you a good idea on how to do the big phone home. And he wasn't totally wrong, but he also didn't warn me. I didn't really know who Stephen Bassett was until he told me to go talk to him. And then I started listening to him. I'm like, this guy's fucking nuts. He's nuts. He thinks there's a world conspiracy that all the governments are holding back this alien secret, and there's no evidence for it whatsoever. But he did know what committees and things like that to sort of go after. So from that aspect, he was helpful. But I say this just because Jesse Springer, I don't know how involved he is today, but if I had to take a guess, I'd still think he's very heavily involved in the promotion of everything Lou Elizondo. Like he is in Elizondo's ear, at least the last I interacted with him, and I don't see why that would change today. But yeah, Jesse Springer is an important player in all of this, and so is Manny. Maybe you can remind me who did the redacted. Jake Mann. Jake Mann was the guy who ran redacted. Those two guys are heavily involved in everything Elizondo. What are you going to say, McGowan?
I will clarify that I like Jake. I think Jake is an upstanding guy. I've never had a problem with Jake. He actually came to bat for me and quashed some of the rumors that people were spreading about me with that video that I was doing with Lou and Sean, and basically told him, hey, I was the producer on this. The shit that's being said about McGowan did not happen. So Jake, I think, is a good dude. I respect him. I think that he got manipulated like so many of us did, and he fell into a rabbit hole that took him a little longer to get out of than the rest of us did.
But is he out? Is I know the show It's Redacted has not done anything at all.
Jake has moved on to some other things projects that are completely separate from the world of UFOs.
That's interesting, man. I'd love to talk to him and get his perspective on exactly what went down there, because I know he was a big part of it. He was a huge part behind the scenes anyway. That was one thing that they told me. They're like, yeah, just don't mention our names. We don't want anyone really knowing that we're part of this. We're doing this stuff behind the scenes. But anyway, I am curious, Manny, because I'm sure you know more of the lore and the stories from Elizondo's. Either he's claimed himself or other people have made of him. What are some of the more grandiose things that this timeline now squashes completely out of the conversation as a reality for you? Like, what's the one I mean, I think of Mattis. That's the first thing I think of like, okay, that probably didn't happen at all. Didn't even come close to happening. They weren't even in the same fucking part of the planet when like this was going down. So I mean, for you, what do you see as something like that, or is it that one?
Well, like I said earlier, I think this pretty much quashes the remote viewing thing. I think that story can just be, at least the way that he portrays it, can just pretty much be kicked to the curb. That he was never considered for Gray Fox. That's probably a mixture of his recruitment into maybe the intelligence agency, into the DIA, and then but he's convoluted or transposed some other facts in there. I would say also, and to kind of go back to what Jeremy was saying earlier, a lot of the stories that he's claimed are kind of, he never said that he was deployed while he was in the military. He never said, I've done combat while I was in the Army. He never said that he did 20 years in the military. In fact, he was real cagey about his time in the military. So I can already tell you right now that his what I believe his excuse is going to be is that he had done all these things while at the DIA. And he's going to say those knowing that we can't confirm or deny it. He's going to say, yes, I was deployed to Afghanistan for, X amount of time. And he knows full well that there's no way that we can debunk that because those records are not going to be given to us. You can't FOIA it except for under, I think, some extreme conditions, which maybe it will come out someday. I'd like to see that. I would love to see it, especially because he's been so forthcoming about what a lot of his past work was in the DIA. If you go and look at his ICIG complaint, he talks about the 2008 period all the way up to his retirement, so that we know a lot about what he was doing there with intelligence and things like that. Now we're filling in all the way up to 2003. There's really only a few years left where we don't know what he was doing, and so we can put those into the timeline of what we already know. And it's not good because there's not room for him to have gone and served in these combat zones in Afghanistan and done all these, door kicking Rambo stuff and been at Guantanamo Bay, torturing people. And like the world is just not that big. And there's not enough time in the day for him to have done all those things that he's claimed that he's doing. Maybe if he'd have stuck to just one of these stories, that might've been plausible. But for all of them to be true, like, this guy would have to be a soldier's soldier, and he should have a chest of ribbons that rival some of our 4-star generals. And he doesn't have
Come close.
I mean,
Yeah.
Look at this right here. I was in 6 years active, 6 years reserves, and I didn't do shit. And that's what I've got.
Yeah.
I mean, I did nothing.
Well, you did sit on a crate. You did sit on possibly a nuclear weapon. I mean,
You know what I got? You know what I got for that? I got a certificate that looks like it came off of MS Paint.
For sure, but at least, I mean, look, man. For me, I don't know if it's something that I know that you guys are going to look at it way different than a civilian's going to look at it. But for me, I would hang my hat on of like, well, fuck, I actually served. I held a gun in my hand. I was in a desert. I sat on a nuclear weapon for a couple days. Like, I did shit. Like, I didn't just push pencils and drive cars.
The coolest thing I ever did when I was in the military is I was actually on horse patrol.
Nice.
I was stationed in Panama, and I was one of the last members of the military, of the Air Force, to be assigned to horse patrol.
Wow.
And my job was to ride through the Panamanian jungle for 10 to 12 hours a day because we didn't have a perimeter fence around the Air Force base. And we would ride through the jungle looking for people trying to get into the base.
Was that an armed detail, Jeremy? Were you armed?
Yeah.
And just to be clear, like, so you had like maybe a sidearm, possibly a rifle, right? And you had backup magazines. You were ready to do combat if you needed to, because it was an armed position. And,
Absolutely.
Right. And so a lot of the photographs that we have of Elizondo when he is in Afghanistan, he's not armed. You go and look at his belt. You don't see extra magazines for his clips. I mean, the image that Lou used for the thumbnail here, he's actually at least holding a rifle, which appears to be some variant of an M203 with the 40 millimeter grenade launcher on the bottom. It's not loaded. He doesn't have grenades on the bandolier. He doesn't have extra magazines. I think he is wearing a canteen in that one. So at least he's like, hey, I'm in the desert and I need some fucking water. Like, he's at least pretending like he might actually be going out somewhere off base for a minute or two.
That's the picture. I think of that picture when we now, juxtaposed to the record that we have that we've got FOIA'd now, and it makes sense now. Yeah, okay, maybe he was in Afghanistan for a short period of time, or Iraq or something like that with the DIA, and yeah, he took a picture in a desert. He's got his canteen and he's driving from place to place, and he's like, hey, can I take a picture with the say hello to my little friend gun from Scarface because I'm Cuban, and he fucking takes the picture, and boom, now he can use that as I served time here and there because look at that fucking gun. I mean, right? Scarface used that. I'll say hello to my little friend.
I'm pretty sure that picture was actually when he was in Korea. Now,
there you go.
In his defense, when I was at his house, I did see one singular picture of him standing in the desert in a location in the Middle East. He was wearing pleated pants, a button-down shirt, and suspenders. He was not in a combat position. Not in that picture.
Well, Complicit with a 222 donation said the gun Elizondo is holding in his army pic looks fake. Well, it's probably not fake, but yeah, it's definitely not fake, but it's just funny. Like that's the best we've got right there. That's the closest thing that we're gonna get. And I think it was you, Manny, the other day when we haven't even touched on these new whistleblowers coming out on the Matt Ford show. But you know, this idea of like, is this the best? Really, this is what we've got now? It's just like, yeah, dude, it's only going to get worse. The quality of these whistleblowers is not going to go up. It's only going to go down. The best that they had to publicly put on the table is Elizondo, Dave Grush, and maybe Jay Stratton, because he's got that book deal coming out now. So maybe they get a movie or TV show based off of these two books.
Well,
go ahead.
Sorry to butt in, but I'm glad you mentioned Stratton. Everybody is thinking that there is a tiff or a riff or a fight going on between Stratton and Elizondo, and I think they're not. I don't think they're
staged?
fighting. I think that what Stratton told me, that he's getting tired of cleaning up loose shit, when I met him last year at Phenomicon, I think that was accurate. But I don't think that there's much more to it, because Stratton and Elizondo are both members of Quantum Frontiers, and you don't go into business with somebody that you want to strangle.
Well, I asked that question to Stephen Greenstreet, and he told me that they registered that idea last year. So it could be something where they went into it together as buddies, but now have separated. Because I think especially if you want to quash the idea of there's a fight going on, release information that you guys are in business together, but nobody checks the date of when the business was started. You know, like it
That's true.
Maybe it doesn't work. And here's the thing. We had Matt Ford about a month ago or 2 months ago say that there's going to be a big split in the community here, and people are going to wonder what the hell's going on. And I think the split is Stratton and Elizondo and the Skinwalker crew. I mean, you saw them playing in their band. That's at Phenomicon this year. That's the Stratton crew. And I think Knapp and Corbell are tied to them. And then you've got the Elizondo crew, which is basically Elizondo and his sycophants, which he has. And I can't think of anybody really that's like, I don't think Leslie Kane's going to take his side. I don't think Blumenthal's going to take his side. I don't think any of the big players in the arena, I think they're all pissed off at him right now. They're not happy. And you could tell by the way they've been covering his book and the lack of energy that this book was met with by the Dolans and the Knapps and the Corbells. Like, I think they are choosing Team Stratton and the eminent domain thing over the unverifiable claims of, no offense, pencil pushing intelligence guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what he was. He was an administrative support position as a low-ranking E4, filing intelligence reports that were collected by others.
Yeah, it's interesting that he started his career doing that, and he actually kind of ended his career doing that. He was obviously at G15, he was much higher than an E4, when he retired in 2017. But he still was largely an administrative role, like a bureaucrat, like somebody who was doing things for other people. It looks like in his performance review that he leaked or that was released in his ICIG complaint, I think you see part of that too. You see that he was sent down to Guantanamo Bay to assess operations down there and then to report back to somebody else on it. Because of his clearance levels, he was approved to do that. And we know that from the FOIA request that John Greenwald got, that he was down there also doing something with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's interpreter for the attorney. There was something with security clearance. So he sent down there either to verify that person had the right clearances or to give them the right clearances so that they could be part of this top secret trial where top secret information was discussed. So he still, at the end of his career, went from being a minor administrator to kind of a major administrator, but still an administrative assistant, essentially, a glorified secretary.
Manny, would that be a faceless bureaucrat?
100%. That's 100%. Just another faceless bureaucrat, a guy who's like,
Yep.
yep, okay, here's the paperwork, sign off on it. Yep, he can do his thing. Was he down there at Gitmo torturing people? I don't think so. I think he embellished that because of a rumor that was started when that FOIA request came out. On the internet they're like, oh, he was a Gitmo. He was waterboarding people and stuff. It had to have been. It's like, well, not necessarily. We don't even know how long he was there. But I mean, that is only there once.
That is such a strange rumor to lean into.
I agree.
It's such a strange thing to be like, well, I'm just going to embellish this as if I did torture them. And man, I think the most damning thing I want to find, because I know it never happened, but if Parliament in the UK had, in an open court, labeled him the czar of torture,
or a war criminal.
Yeah, wouldn't we find that somewhere? Wouldn't that be part of some kind of public record that we could look up? If he's making this claim, obviously the court, it's not like a secret court that they're doing this at. He's saying in open court that they're calling him the czar of torture, and a country put him on a no entry list. What are you talking about, man? Where did we get there?
Yeah, I think that would be public record. I would assume there'd be an article about it or something.
You would think. But I couldn't find anything.
Yeah, I couldn't find anything.
I know nothing about the Official Secrets Act of the EU, and I don't even know how to process that.
Rotary Motion with a £2 donation says, Manny delivers. Thank you for your service. I agree, awesome. Man. This is a shit show, but I think, if anything, it's just another notch in our belts, specifically the three of us. The hell that we've been put through, it's kind of like screaming at the top of our lungs, hey, look out for this. This doesn't line up. This is very strange. All of the things that we've talked about. And it's like, as time passed, it's wild how much stuff has come out after this book has been released, and how quickly people have thrown each other under the bus in scrambling to get control of the narrative. But yeah, I mean, any other thoughts that you guys have?
I would like for Lou to do what I've done, what 4 or 5 other veterans have done. Post your DD-214. If you claim that you were doing X, Y, and Z, show it. Redact your social security number, redact your home address. That's fine. Leave the rest of the DD-214 up there. If you were a DOD civilian and working for the DIA, show your SF-50. Show it. Post it. Quash the rumors. Shut me down. Make me shut up. Make all of this go away and prove that what's being said about you or what that you're claiming is actually true.
Jeremy, can you, especially for the podcast audience out there, can you explain why those two forms of information would really go a long way into validating Elizondo's claims?
Yeah, so the DD-214 or Defense Department Form 214 is a record of a military member's full term of service. If you serve 4 years, if you serve 10 years, if you serve 20 years, when you separate, you get a DD-214. It lists your trainings. It lists your assignments. It lists your awards and decorations, your accommodations. It lists the reason that you separated. If you were declared psychologically unfit, it will say that. If you were separated because you got a commission, it will say that. It is the most official transcript that you can have that details your service in the military.
And would that include also like DIA service, say?
No. If you're a DOD civilian, that's going to be on the 50 Bravo form. And it's basically the same thing, but it is for DOD civilians. And it shows their assignments, where they were, when they were there, the trainings that they completed, if they got commendations, if they got discipline, it's all there.
And that would
Those
be
two
also
forms.
something else. Yeah, that would be something really great
Yep.
to show everybody, because that would confirm
Yep.
everything if what he's
It
saying
would,
or the rumors
if
are.
what, yeah, if you've got remote viewing abilities, prove it. If you claim that you were fighting the Taliban in a Bradley with a Mark 19 with General Mattis, prove it. Otherwise, shut up.
Yeah, very well said. What do you think, Manny?
Yeah, I'd like to see him come public with his records to prove that. I mean, I think it would quash any sort of questions about his military service. And I think there's also documentation, obviously, that he can provide about his DIA service as well that would help remove any sort of speculation about what he did and didn't do. Obviously, if he can write about it in the book, he can talk about it to us in public because it's been cleared by DOPSAR already. So there's really no reason that he couldn't just be forthcoming about it. There's no reason to have these veiled statements, breadcrumbs, and ambiguous comments that then someone from his camp needs to go and clarify publicly for him. That's manipulation, plain and simple. And that should tell you right there that it's not true. Otherwise, he would just come out and say it or show the documentation provided. And at this point, here we are 7 years later, we still don't know what ATIP actually was, what his role was there, and people are like, what's the point? Does it matter? To me, it matters hugely, to a lot of other people, they might not care, but to me, it does matter. I mean, if his whole story's been alive from day one and his story's changed 5 times as new information comes out, we just got to accept we're never going to get the truth from this guy, that every time he's caught in a lie, he's just going to double, triple down with another lie and another lie and another lie and give you, part of the truth, but not the whole truth, So we just got to sift through what he said in the past, look for the things that line up consistently. Those are probably the things that are true. And then the rest of it, where it kind of flip flops, you just got to discard it and say, he's a liar. So you can't really take him at his word.
We've got a fake Lou Elizondo in the chat who says, read the book again. You missed it.
and Lou, I'll tell you this. After I got these records from the National Personnel Records Center, I tried to do the same thing for his alleged time at the DIA.
Yeah.
The response that I got from the DIA, and I'm reading it off my other monitor, it's a long email, but it says, in this instance, DIA cannot verify that Mr. Elizondo was ever affiliated with DIA. And then it goes on and it says DIA concurs that Mr. Elizondo may have waived his privacy interest in the fact of his employment through his media interviews and the publication of his book. DIA also acknowledges that there is sufficient public interest in the general subject matter covered in his interviews and books, but they still cannot verify that Elizondo was ever affiliated with the DIA. It does say that there are exceptions to the policy where persons of high rank in the DIA who also have waived their privacy or are in significant public controversies could have their records released. And then it goes on to say that it is unlikely that if he was affiliated with the DIA, that he ever occupied a position that would be acknowledged as an exception to this authority, which means that if he was with the DIA, he was also there as a low rank nothing.
What were you gonna say? Are you gonna say something, Manny?
No, just my phone was going off, so I muted it.
No, you're good. Oh God, I had a question and I just lost it. Whatever. I mean, it's not boding well. I think, here's what I was going to say. The thing for me with Elizondo and the remote viewing claims, and it was really well highlighted by Kurt Jaimungal. So do you still remote view today? Well, yes, but I can't go into any more detail. Okay, do you meditate? Nope, don't know how to, Kurt. Just can't do it. It's just like, wait a second. I don't know about you boys, but I've never heard of once of a remote viewer not being able to get into needing the requirement of meditation before they lock in on a target. Have you guys, as far as I know, those things are synonyms.
Yeah, it's in that remote viewing manual that he gave to Katie Howland. I put a link to it on the internet, and anyone can find it. There's been versions of that thing floating around since the mid 90s, 95, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, you pretty much need to be able to meditate.
You have to.
And I mean at the gym. I don't mean while
Yeah.
skipping leg day at the gym. I mean, while you need to be able to clear your mind. It takes some practice, and it seems ridiculous that he would even try to pass that off. But I think that's kind of that's the world we find ourselves in. Like I said earlier, in the space, I don't think I said it here, but there's not going to be any big killing blow to Lou Elizondo where someone's going to come in with a piece of evidence that's just going to lop his head off and he's going to be done. The people who believe his story won't believe any amount of evidence you put in front of them. There's a core group of believers, and it doesn't matter what you put in front of them. They're still going to believe him.
Here's what I'll say, Manny, is I don't know if I used to be a hardcore believer. I always had skepticism, but I definitely had a blind spot for the belief. But I look at what just happened last week with the other Katie, or is it her name Katie? She does the UFO Rabbit Hole podcast, and she had put out a tweet basically saying, the difference between ATIP and OSAP has never been more confusing than it is right now. And the fact that you have to preface any questions to get clarification on that with apologies. You have to preface every question with an apology and walk on eggshells. And even then, when you ask the question, you're treated as a pariah. She said basically ufology needs to get tougher. You need to grow a pair. And so I agree with you on some level. Like, there are going to be that group of people that no matter what you put in front of them, they're not going to bend. But I think your work, McGowan's work, my work, Cambian's work, all the folks out there, Stephen Greenstreet, even Greenwald with his FOIA requests, and the more clarity that you can add to the conversation, I think is at some point going to pay dividends for all of us in one way or another, because none of us have to look anyone in the face and say a lie or a half truth, or feel guilt for selling them something that we know isn't there. I take my hats off to you guys and everyone else out there who's had the gumption and the temerity to speak up against this shit, because I think if you are a rational thinker, and there are a lot of rational thinking people that end up in this rabbit hole, and there needs to be an outlet like Lou Reviews and Manny 503 and Medium articles from Jeremy McGowan. We have to keep doing this shit, I guess is my point. Like, we have to keep calling these guys out. We have to keep asking them the tough questions, no matter whether they like it or not, because there always has to be someone there to combat the irrationality. If we have to be those guys, then so be it. But I think this was great work, McGowan. Honestly, man, I always appreciate your tenacity in this, and
I appreciate it. And I will say that if evidence comes out that shows that these official records are wrong, I will issue a retraction and a correction.
Yep.
If it comes straight from Lou and he puts up his DD-214 and his 50 Bravo tomorrow, I'll incorporate it in this article, and I'll say, son of a bitch, I was wrong.
Yeah.
As it sits right now, this is the information from official records. We've only got one side of the story. The ball's in his court.
Yeah. And let's go to the UFO casino for a moment. Manny, if you had to put your money on red or black, red being he'll give us the DD-214 and all the documents to verify these stories, and black being he won't. What are you putting your money on?
I'm all in on black.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way he's going to release those documents. Yeah.
Jeremy?
Always bet on black.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm betting on black too. I'm betting the house on that one. And even if he did, I don't think those two forms of documents will verify any of the claims he's making. Maybe some time in certain areas of the world, but not the activities in which the lore has been built around those times. I'm with you guys. Yeah, I there's nothing there that I always, man, it just feels, it's like you want to believe. I don't know about you, Manny, but I want to believe this guy. I want him to have his day in the sun, but honestly, he doesn't deserve it. He hasn't earned it. He just hasn't earned it. And it's guys like you and McGowan and others that constantly remind us of it. So I again, just thank you guys. I appreciate for you being here and taking the time. Manny, is there anything you want to talk about before you get out of here?
No, I think we covered most of it. I would honestly, and I've said this before in some form, I would like to have a beer with the real Lou Elizondo, the real guy. I would like to sit down and have a beer with the guy who worked on, was down in Panama doing drug interdiction work, who worked on bioterrorism, who actually did something at Guantanamo Bay with Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's attorney. I would really like to talk to that guy. One of my favorite authors growing up was Robert Ludlum. Another one was like Tom Clancy. And I loved that kind of that environment and that type of job and that life that he lived. But the fictional UFO Lou that's out there, I don't have a lot of use for, because it's just a lot of the same old stories retold, with no evidence that we've heard from a ton of other sources over the years, whether it was Philip Corso or Kit Green or Hal Puthoff or whoever. Like, we've heard all this stuff before. And now that he's doing it and saying it's real because I say so, it's just insulting. It's insulting to the intelligence of everyone out there who's investigated this stuff, who spent their time seriously researching it, and who is in good faith searching for answers out there to the UFO question. It's really insulting. And that he's just doing it for $1. And that's the part that's really aggravating. And I think that that's really going to be the only way that he's ever going to go away, is if people stop buying his books, people stop watching the documentaries that he's in, people stop paying him to appear at conventions and go to speaking events and things like that. When it's no longer financially viable for him, then maybe he'll go away. But he's not going to go away until then. As long as people keep stuffing his wallet, he'll be around forever. Like I said, he's America's Nick Pope, and we're stuck with him unless we do something about it.
Well,
they were both clerical.
Well, right. But yeah, that's true. He is America's Nick Pope. I mean, that is a perfect way to describe him. I got a picture before the show started. Somebody sent this to me, and it's a checkout screenshot for a 5 p.m. private dinner with Luis Elizondo. So it includes a private dinner with Elizondo the night of his show at 5 p.m. More details will be provided after you purchase this add-on. The add-on is $250 to eat dinner with Lou Elizondo, which is just like, I mean, honestly, I don't think that's too steep. I don't think it's too steep. I would, man, McGowan, and you know what I'm doing behind the scenes. I'm telling you, dude, there is a budget somewhere out there where somebody's like, yeah, let's pay for you to go to that dinner. Let's pay the $250 fee. Let's get some hidden cameras on your lapel or whatever, and we'll go undercover. Not really undercover, but go to these conventions, pay these absorbent amount of fees to ask the questions that we want to ask them, and get them on video to answer these fucking things and see what they're saying behind these $250 private dinner doors. Like, I'd love to be a waiter.
It's a UFO version of Project Veritas.
Yeah. Well, I bet it's very similar to the same bullshit that Travis Taylor was spitting at the dinner that the video came out of him, doing one of these expensive dinners with the UFO guy, and he's telling stories of Jay Stratton, his neighbors getting cancer from, the entity that it's attached itself to him. Dude, it's a shit show. But yeah. Anyway, that's where we're at. Jeremy McGowan, dude, thank you for again for putting this out there. I know that you're working on other stuff. I'm excited to see the other stuff you're working on as well. Any idea on what you might be working on and or when it might be hitting?
It's a long-term project.
Okay.
A very long-term project.
Yeah.
I've got some really, really good people involved in it.
Well,
I'm hoping. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to make a suggestion. I think Manny would be a really good member of this team to investigate what you're looking at, because I think Manny's really good at looking for stuff too. And again, like, I think the timelines, especially Manny, the Florida timelines with Elizondo, because there's some stuff going on in Florida, man. I'm just saying, this is not over. There's some stuff to talk about, and I think Manny might be able to help you. But anyway, yeah, I'm excited. And I think as I said, as time goes on, the more stuff comes out, I think the better. And it also just validates everything that we've been saying for the last, I've been saying it for 2 years. Manny, you've been probably saying it for the better half of 3 years, 4 years, and McGowan, same with you. So yeah, man, guys, I appreciate you doing this show. This was an awesome episode. I can't wait to put it up on the podcast. So I'm going to let you guys get out of here. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah. Love you to death.
Thanks for having us on.
Later, McGowan. Later, Manny.
Enjoy.
Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
All right, you guys, that was the crew. That was the show. I mean, how much longer do we have to do this nonsense for? How much evidence do we have to put out there? How many contradictions do they have to make? How many lies do they have to tell you? How many dinners do they have to sell you? How many books are you going to buy? How many TV shows are you going to quote? How many cases that you don't actually look into are you going to hold on a pedestal? You guys, most of the people in this conversation are better than the conversation they're getting. And the reason why the conversation sucks is because you guys are really bad at raising the standard. Help us raise the standard of this conversation. That's why we do this show. Without you guys, we can't help raise that bar. So, share the show, subscribe, ring the bell, support through Patreon if you can, through super chats. Thanks to all my members out there: Complisier, Dana Shadell, Breeder Syndicate as a mod. Where is my girl? Who am I missing? Pinzerloo, there you are, girl. Thank you for being a member. And everyone else who donated to the show. I just can't thank you guys enough for supporting the show on that level. It trust me when I tell you, it helps. And again, hopefully soon we won't even need a budget. So yeah. Anyway, you guys, enjoy your weekend, enjoy your family, your friends, all that stuff that you do outside of this crazy discussion. And yeah, I think that's it. Yeah. Have a great weekend, y'all. Love ya. Peace. Night, Pat Calabria, Morty Matt, Gracie DeVars, Now That I Become Death, Ed Monster, UFOT Research, Archangel Reese, Mr. Eon, Esco Politica, two-time Dana Shadell, Simon Fly, Freakish Preacher, Asynchronicity, Bobby Broadway, you guys, all of you, love you all. Have a great weekend.